Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at using the colliders that we have attached to the mushroom, and we're going to add another collider to get our character to interact with it and get hurt when we hit it from the side, as well as be able to damage the mushroom when we do jump on it from the top. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is, so when we hit it from the side, so when we hit the mushroom from the side, what is going to happen to it? Actually, I was playing around with a few other mushrooms. So I'm going to just delete. I'll delete this one here. Actually, I'm going to move that one up since that's my original one. And I'm going to delete this one here. So, and then I do have another mushroom that I was working on the script, and I'll kind of explain that at the end of this video, and I'm going to get you to try to figure out how to get it to work. So anyways, so what we want to do is when we jump on the top of it, we want to be able to hurt it. So currently we have in terms of colliders, we do have a box collider on it. And our box collider is here, right? So that's the box collider on it. So what we need to do is set up a different collider that we can set to different things, right? So currently if we set it as, okay, well, when you jump on top, so on collision, we destroy the mushroom. But then when you hit it from the side, that's also an on collision. So you could create another game object, add a collider, and so on. However, because there are there's a trigger collider and a collision collider, we can simply add another collider and trigger it, or make it a trigger. So on our mushroom patrol, we're going to add a collider. So a box collider 2D again. And this time we are going to move it, so we're going to edit it, and we're going to move it so that it's on top of the mushroom. And we want it a little bit on the inside of the mushroom, right? So if you make this the same width, then, and this is where, right, so it's practice kind of as you work through it and then play it, you'll see some of these, not errors, but things that happen. So if you make it directly on the side, when you jump, you can trigger both of these at the same time, right? Even if you're jumping up and you hit. So you want to make this so that it's on the inside of it. Right, so we want to move this one so it's on the inside. So now if you jump up, you're not going to hit that edge of that trigger. And then it's really only when you're jumping down, so coming down on the mushroom, that you're going to be able to hurt it. And same thing, I'll move that one to the inside there. And that's it. The other thing that you want to make sure you do for this box collider is you want to set it as a trigger. So we want to make sure that that box collider is a trigger, and then that's it. Right, so that sets up the trigger now. So now we have a collider, and we also have a trigger. Right, so we have the collider here, and then we have another box collider that's attached to it, which is the trigger one. So what we're going to do then is in the script, so this one is fairly straightforward. So I'm going to do the where we hurt the mushroom first. All you really need to do is if we go into our mushroom patrol script, so mushroom patrol script, so we're going to edit the script, and we really want to just create a on trigger event. Right, so again, make sure that you are outside of this function here, so that's the void fixed update. And then under there, so outside of there, we're going to create a private, a void on trigger enter 2D. And again, this is a collider 2D, and we will call it call to keep these consistent. So what we're doing, so the mushroom is triggering, so the collider triggers with another object. So what we want to identify is if, so again, similar as we did with the cherry, so if the collision, so then dot game object dot compare tag is player, oops, in quotes. So if the collision dot compare, so if the collision is with the game object that's tagged player, then what do we want to happen? So again, inside the braces, we want to destroy the mushroom, or in this case, we're just going to do it for now as game object dot set active, and then in brackets false. right? So it's going to set the game object false. So it's going to turn it off. So if we save this out, we'll go back and let it compile. Okay, so now that it's compiled, so if we play through it a bit, so if I jump on top, you see I jumped on it, it triggered it, and then it destroyed the mushroom, right? The mushroom was set active, so it's false. So the mushroom is dead, essentially. So a few things that we're going to add here as well. So when we jump on it, we also want to add a jump force to our character. So if we go into our player character, and so just to make sure, and I don't remember if I did this or if it's automatically set, but where we're comparing the tag, you do want to make sure your player is tagged as player. So this player tag already exists, so you can, that's there, right? So you just tag it as a player. So make sure it is tagged as a player, and that's it. So that's good. So in our player script, we're going to edit it. And we also want to add, so we're going to be adding a jump force. When you hit the mushroom on the top, it's going to cause you to or give you a force to bounce off of it. So again, outside of our, so outside of these functions, so we're going to add, so in this case, so private. Actually, it doesn't, well, we'll just set this as a void since that's how I had the other one. So void on trigger, enter 2D. And what we're going to do is set it where if it collides with the mushroom top. So on trigger, enter 2D. And we are going to use the collider 2D and call it call as well. Right? And then again, put your braces in. So the function inside here, we want this to be the function here. So what we want to happen is we want to create a jump force. So all we're really going to do, so if the collision dot game object dot tag, so game object dot compare tag is the mushroom, and I'm gonna have to go and tag the mushroom. I don't think we did that already, but so if our trigger collider is with the mushroom, what do we want to happen? We want to add a jump force to our player. So rb.velocity equals new vector 2, and we're going to add a jump force. So the y velocity, or the x velocity rather, is going to stay the same. So if we're kind of going to the right, it's going to stay that way and so on. So we're not going to impact that. And then we also want to add a jump force. So we can add a jump force, which is the same one we have here. If you wanted it different, you could add a jump enemy force, for example, which would give you a different jump off amount. So we can just, so again, you would want to create a serialized field, private float, and then it's a jump enemy force, right? So let's set this to 3, so it's not as high. So that's going to create a different force off of the mushroom in the y direction. And that's it for that part. So if we save this, and I'll let it compile. I had an error, and that's because I forgot to put my semicolon at the end here. And again, to kind of debug your things, right? So we have here a compile error at 109, or not a compile error. So there's an error, a script error at 109. So you go to your script, you look at 109, why? Oh, yes, the semicolon, right? So some of these are kind of just, hopefully they're easy fixes like that, where you just look and you realize, oh, I forgot a semicolon, which I should have seen because you had that little red error there. So again, I'll save it, let it compile. Okay, so as we play through now, so now when we jump on top of our mushroom, oh, what happened? Okay, I must have changed the script in the wrong. Okay, I realized why we just kept jumping on it and then it died and nothing happened. We need to tag the mushroom, right? Because the way the script is working, it's trying to find when we jump on the mushroom. So again, I have the mushroom here already here. So you'd have to add a tag, call it mushroom, and then go in and just tag your mushroom as mushroom. So I'm going to make sure that's the same as what I have here. So if our trigger is on the mushroom, then it's going to add that jump force. So that's good. And save that. Not that it should already be saved. So we just tagged mushroom. I'm going to just make sure that we have our jump force is big enough that we'll see definitely a difference. So I'm going to set the jump E force to 15. And now when we play it, we should be able to trigger that and get a jump force off of the mushroom when we land on it. We can kind of move around, jump up on the platform, jump on it, and you can see when we landed on it, it gave us that extra jump force off of the mushroom. So that's good, that's perfect. So that's what we want. So that gives us our being able to hurt the mushroom, but now we want the mushroom to hurt us, right? So what we're going to do is, I think for now, we're just going to set it as so on the collider now. So that's the trigger. It gives us that jump force off of it. And so now we are going to set a void on collision, enter 2D. And this is a collision 2D, and oh, no comment. And again, we can call this call, and then in the braces. So we're going to change kind of, or at least work through what's going to happen here. So if we collide with the mushroom, we want something to happen. So we want to be, well, there's a few things here. So we want to be bounced back from the mushroom, and then we also want to be damaged. So I think for now, we're just going to set it up as the changing the sprite color and then bouncing us back from the mushroom. So one of the things that, again, as with the other components, we have a sprite renderer here with our player. So we can access the sprite renderer and change the color here, right? Which is going to change the color of our sprite when we run into the mushroom. So in our player script, we need to access that. So in our player script, if we go up to the top, I'm going to keep these components together. So we want to get our private sprite renderer, and we'll call it player, so player sprite. And then same as we did for the other components, our player sprite equals get component, and in the less than equal signs, we want to get the sprite renderer. Right, and that'll allow us to get the sprite renderer. So for now, what we're going to do is just simply in our on collision enter 2D, we're going to say if the collision dot, I'm going to just copy this up here actually. So if our collision, and this time again, keep in mind that it's using the collider on it, right? Not the one we added to the mushroom top. That's a trigger, which is going to do this. It's looking at the collider ones. That's not the trigger. So if our collision is with that, then we're going to change the sprite color, right? So player sprite dot color. And we can change it by simply saying, so player sprite dot color equals a new color. So this is going to equal color dot red, and we can just call it red. So this is going to change the color of our sprite to red. And this C does need to be capitalized here. So I'm going to save this out and let it compile. Okay, so if we go in and play, so now when we collide with the mushroom from the side, it changes our color to red. However, we don't go back to normal, so we're going to have to change that and fix that in a second. So what we want to do is we're going to set up a, go back to the here. So that just changes our color currently. And also what we want to do is identify which way, so now we're going to also add a bounce force. So if you hit the mushroom, so for example, if you hit the mushroom here, it's going to cause us a hurt force and bounce us off of it. Vice versa, if we hit from the right side, it's going to bounce us the other way. Right, so we're going to add that in right now as well. So so on collision, so if the collision is with the mushroom, then there's a few things we need to check first. So first we want to identify where our position is relative to the mushroom, right? So I'm going to just hit enter there. So we want to say if the collision dot game object, so dot game object dot transform. So we're checking the, so again, our player collides with the game object, and we're checking the position of that game object of the mushroom. So if the collision of the is with the game object, that transform, so if it's greater than our position, transform dot position dot x, then what do we want to happen? Right, so I'm going to just put that in there. So currently, so if the collision, so if the game object is greater than, so that means the mushroom is on the right hand side, then we want to bounce to the left. Right, so if it's greater than our position, then we're going to bounce left. So we're going to create a function called basically just bounce left. And then we're going to create that function down below. And so if the collision is there, or if that is the position, else, right, we want to bounce right, or cause a hurt force to the right. So what that's doing then is, so our else statement is saying, well, no, now our game object is less than, so the position is less than, which means the game object is over on the left-hand side. So when we hit it from this side, right, so when we hit it from on this side, it's going to hit, so we're going to hit the mushroom collide and then bounce off of it from this way, so it creates the hurt force in that direction. And I put a colon there, so we want a semicolon, and I'm just going to take this out for now because I'm going to be moving it down below anyways. So down here now we want to create those two functions, and what we're going to do is create what's called a coroutine. So the way to fix when we hit it and turn red, we didn't turn back. What we want to do is when we hit, we want to have kind of a wait time where we're hurt and then kind of turn back to our regular color and so on. So in this, so to create a coroutine, which actually I'm going to have to change that up here. So what we want to do is we want to start a coroutine, and it's going to be called bounce left, which should be all in brackets there. And then similarly for the bounce right, we want this to be a start coroutine and bounce right. And the coroutine is in brackets, and because they're methods, they have the parentheses with it. So a coroutine allows you to set a time, right? So something happens and then you could wait a certain amount of seconds and then return back to normal. So we'll do and these are, again, kind of Unity, the way Unity sets these up. It's an I enumerator is the way you write these in. So and I do want this as a private I enumerator. So private I, capital E, numerator, bounce left. And then again, the braces will be where we set the function, and then also a private I enumerator, and this is bounce right. And yes, good thing I noticed that, so this should be bounce left. And now we want to set the things that are going to happen, right? So in the bounce left, this is where we want to change our player sprite. So player sprite dot color equals color dot red. So that's going to change our player sprite to red. We also want to add or change the velocity, right? So we want to bounce our character to the left. So we want to do rb.velocity equals new vector 2, and we want to have a hurt force. So we're going to have to create a variable up top, so a hurt force, and then we're not affecting our y velocity or the y position, so rb.velocity.y. So because we are creating a hurt force going to the left, this should be a negative hurt force. So negative velocity means it's going to the left. And up here, we do want to add that force in as well. So again, it's a serialize field, and we are creating a private float, and it is a hurt force. And let's set this to 5F. Okay. And again, these are values that you can play with to kind of see what looks good when you hit the mushroom and so on. So that's going to move us to the left when we hit it. And then from there, and this is where the coroutines are different in the sense that you can set a time here now. So we can say yield, return new, wait for seconds, and then we want to wait a certain amount of time. So let's set this to 0.3F. So we're waiting a third of a second approximately. And now we want to return our player back to its regular. So player, so the player sprite dot color equals color dot white, which just gives it back all of its RGB colors. And that's it. And keep in mind, hopefully you've noticed, so if you want to change it to green or red or blue or anything, right? So this R is lowercase. So the colors that you use is lowercase. And then for the bounce right, we're going to do the same thing, except in this case, we are going to, we're simply just going to bounce our character in the other direction. So we want to take our hurt force here and make it a positive hurt force because we're making a hurt force in the right direction. So I'll save that out and we'll let it compile. Okay, so you can see I have an error on line 120. So I'm up here, so 120 and oh, it should be transform dot position dot x. So transform dot position dot x. So the mushroom position compared to our position. We'll save that out again and let that compile. Okay, so if we go into the game, so we hit the mushroom, so we can turn back colors. And this one doesn't work because we haven't tagged that one. So what is going to happen now is so right now the hurt force isn't big enough. So let's just increase that so you can see hurt force. So let's set the hurt force to, let's just set it to 15 just so that we can make sure that it is working. And then jump. And the hurt force isn't working. Okay, so actually everything was working fine. So I just lowered the speed of my mushroom to 3 and increased my hurt force. So you can see it hits me, and then, or if you run into it and bounce off. So one of the things that's happening or was happening is, I realize now as well, is if you continue pushing to the right, so right now if I just stand here and let it hit me, it pushes me off. However, if I hit it, oh, no, I killed it. But if you hit it and continue to move, what's happening is your movement controls override the collision, right? So I'm able to move, so it's not giving me that hurt force. So there is something else that we do need to add here. We have to add what's called a state machine. And this is good because it allows you to change your states. And in fact, some of the state machines you can use to, you can use the state machines to change your animations as well and so on, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to use the state machines to say when we're hurt and so on. So for the state machine, up in our top, so up here, we're going to add in a few things. Okay, so we want to add a, so it's a private, so there's a couple of things that we have to put in. So first we want to create a state, so private state, and sorry, a private enum, and it's the state, and I didn't put a space after there. So private enum state, And then we can identify in the braces the different states that we want our character or object to have. So I'm going to put is hurt as one of the states and not hurt as the other state. Right, so currently our player is only going to be able to have those two states in the game itself. And again, those go inside the braces beside your private and none. And then we're going to set our first state. So we want to create a state, so a private state, and we're going to call this lowercase state, and we're going to set it to state dot not hurt. So our starting state, sorry, this should be, no, that's right. So state, yeah, so capital. So we're setting our start state to not hurt, essentially, is what's happening there. And then, so down here, we want to, so on our collisions here, we want to identify what is happening when we collide with the mushroom. So if we collide with the mushroom, then we're going to change our state to hurt, right? So if our collision is with the mushroom, then up here at the start of this, before we go into the coroutines, we're going to set our state to hurt. So to do that, you simply type state, so that's our lowercase state, so that's what we called it, and it equals state dot is hurt. Right, so we collided with the mushroom, now we are hurt. So we're changing our state so that it is hurt. And that's it for there. And then, so that's going to put us as hurt, which is going to now run through these, and that's going to, and I'm going to have to change something up above as well. And then down here, after we wait, we want to put our state back to, so state equals state dot not hurt. And that's going to reset our state. And then same thing, if we bounce to the right, we want that same thing to happen. Oops. Control copy, and we'll put that there. And then lastly, we do need to go back up to where we can move, right? So we only want to be able to move if we're not hurt. So up here, we can say if, so if our state dot state, no, if, okay, so if our state does not equal, right, so the exclamation mark equal, so if our state does not equal state, not state, state dot is hurt, right, so if our state does not equal is hurt, then we're going to be able to move. So again, so if this is the case, then we're going to be able to move. So we'll have to, so we can cut these. So cut those, we'll move them into the braces. And now we're only going to be able to move if this does not equal is hurt, which means that we're not hurt. So we'll save this, and that should override, well, not override, but now we're only going to be able to move if we're not hurt. So we'll let that compile. Okay, so now that it's compiled and we kind of play through this, I'm going to click on in here. So if I don't want to jump on that mushroom, so right, so I can hit the mushroom and then it bounces me off. So so even if I continue to run, it pushes me off of it now, right? So it bounces me to the, and then I'm in a state where I'm hurt, so I can't move for that brief moment there, for that third of a second. So that's perfect. That's the way we want that set up. So I'm going to end the video here. It's already relatively long. So the one thing I'm going to pose to you as a question is, or not as a question, as kind of homework, or if you want to kind of play with this, is, so the other, so this mushroom I have down here will, so if I push play, for example, it's going to move, and then it's going to move, or it's going to turn direction when it collides with something. So for example, if, it's going to go all the way to the end there, but when it makes a collision with an object, it turns around, right? So if it hits the wall, it will turn around. So what ends up happening is if you have, so if I just take this one quickly, and let's duplicate it, and we'll just move it right here. Right, so if we push play, you'll see what's going to happen, right? So we push play, the mushrooms move, and they're stuck together, right? Why are they stuck together? Because the way we scripted these, so this will work fine if you only have one mushroom on a platform. But the way it's scripted is this mushroom is trying to reach the left limit, right? So it's trying to walk. Because it never gets to the left limit, it stays in that, it's trying to get there. Similarly, this mushroom got to the left limit, so it's turned around and it's trying to go to the right limit. So you could use an on collision. So it's similar to, so base, that's what's on here, right? So if so you want to do it as a on, so void on collision enter 2D. If the collision is with another game object, or you can set it up, and I'm going to show you how to set it up in the next video, how to set it where it can collide with pretty much anything other than the ground, and then it will turn around and move the other way. Right, so anyways, I'll leave that with you. In the next video, we'll look at adding in the, so currently, so we can hit the mushroom, it hurts us, but we're not losing health from that. So we're going to add that in the next video, and I'll go over quickly how to improve the AI of this mushroom. So for now, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.